Good morning, students. Let us talk today about the movie Achut Kanya. Last week I gave you the link to the film, and I had been talking about in the last class I had given you an introduction about the initial years, the early stages of Indian cinema. Now, Indian cinema has, from the 1920s onwards, has seen a lot of changes. There have been with the coming of Himanshu Rai, as I pointed out in that last class. So I would want you to please go back to this last lecture, and if you haven't gone through that, you go through that lecture and then come to this lecture. This is the lecture 2 of the series, and I'm going to introduce to you this movie Achut Kanya. And I also would recommend you watch the movie before you listen to the lecture. Now, our understanding of society and cinema, I'm beginning it with Achut Kanya for a certain reason. Now, Himanshu Rai, as I had pointed out in the last class, and Devika Rani, his wife, formed a team which came back from England, where they were also successful in making, as I had told you in the last class, they were successful filmmakers in England, and they came to India and they formed Bombay Talkies, and the first film that they made was in 1936 called Achut Kanya. Now, as you understand from the title, it's talking about an untouchable. It talks about, touches upon the topic of untouchability. Now, it's very impressive that you see a film in the 1930s, in the mid 1930s, talking about untouchability as a social issue. It's not about just that it touches upon the issue. It's also important to understand that we are talking about the beginning era of filmmaking in India. Like, filmmaking was hardly a decade and a half old before that, and thus the choice of topic, it was a path that was very different from mythologies that Indian cinema was in. Indian cinema mainly fell back upon mythology to get its source. Now, this was social reality. This was talking about human perception. This was talking about the human subjectivity, and thus it's a very important cinema in the history of Indian filmography, if you understand. So see, film is not just reality that is waiting to be peeled away. If you understand, it has a more important socio-political content. We are interested in how audiovisual dimensions of cultural activity constitute or are constitutive of our social perception and reality. So we are more interested into that constitutive reality that cinema forms. Okay, and let's say the integration into this kind of film of a female modernity, for example, showing woman as a professional character, a woman, a working woman in a film, are also have very problematic implications, and we need to go deeper into such. For example, in this film we see one of the ladies working, going to the village mela and setting up a stall, and so there are a lot of problematic female assertions of female modernity. So we need to also assess all of those points in deep. Is it at the level of the narration of the film itself, or is it at a subjective social level that you see this modernities coming up in this film? Now, Achut Kanya, just to give you a beginning idea of Achut Kanya, the film is made in 1936. It sees Devika Rani in the leading role as a female, and you see Devika Rani herself has taken a very prominent position when publicizing the film. She was already a star. There are not many other actresses during the period. So the modernity of this woman, Devika Rani, as a personality is it's a public media personality, if you might call it, at that age. Was projected as an exemplary phenomenon, and she was almost like the role model of the times. So she was that liberated Renaissance woman. Now we see this sort of projection onto the Indian screen during the period of the 1950s and 60s. We see Satyajit Ray working with Charulata and Devi. We see a lot of other films that are made during the 90s. Mother India, for example, which is there in our course. But Devika Ranu is almost like a model of that modernity that we are talking about, not only in the real life, but as you might see in Achyut Kanya, in real also. Now Devika Rani, the star, the western educated girl, is projected onto the role of an untouchable in this film. Now we have Ashok Kumar also playing a very important role in this film, of the lover of Devika Rani on screen, a very young Ashok Kumar. And so basically, what is the story? The story deals with two friends, a Brahmin and an untouchable. Now Mohanlal and Dukhiya. So Mohanlal is a Brahmin who is a businessman in the village who owns a shop, and he is friends with a railway linesman, as you might call it. So Dukhiya, the village, the railway linesman daughter Kasturi and Mohanlal's son are deeply in love with each other, and this forms the initial premise of the whole story. And as you might understand, there is a huge amount of tension building up. There is no social sanction to this sort of a love affair in the village, and as you might see in also later films. So straight to the theme of Achyut Kanya, you will find that the social ramifications of this love affair of the story is what drives forward the narration of the script. This role of Achyut Kanya, this role of Kasturi that Devika Rani plays, almost puts her into that line of the first generation of stars that Indian cinema had. Now she was almost that pinnacle of glory, almost in parallel to some of the Hollywood female stars that we see over the years, almost like a Geta Garbo or somebody. So Devika Rani was in that sort of and Achyut Kanya actually firmly puts her into that pedestal. And Bombay Talkies, if you consider Bombay Talkies, that studio which releases this film, also has quite a run-in with such kind of a topics. It's very important to understand, because other studios were dealing at this time mainly with mythological literature. So Bombay Talkies consciously developed this sort of, and they also developed something called the star value, a commodity value, where they could sell a film based on the sellable value of the star herself, and this star was Devika Rani. Of course, Himanshu Rai himself was there in many of his films. By the way, this film was not directed by Himanshu Rai. The film was directed by a gentleman called Franz Austin, and Franz Austin had directed quite a few films for Bombay Talkies. And you might understand that this is a period when there are not many gifted Indian directors, the medium being so new, and Bombay Talkies invested a lot of money in getting people from abroad to come and act and come and give technical expertise to these films. So Franz Austin actually made quite a few films with the Bombay Talkies. So as I was pointing out, Achyut Kanya's premise of the story lends itself to two: the untouchable girl, yet on the other hand, the real life she is a saleable star who actually sells, who has a star value, a commodity value. And Devika Rani you might call as the first real star in the Indian studio system. Now Mohanlal, the father of the boy, and Dukhya, who is the father of Devika Rani, father of Kasturi in that film, uh, try to achieve the impossible, because they try to, not in that love affair itself, but the very fact that they are friends with each other, try to achieve the impossible. The friendship between an untouchable man and a Brahmin is frowned upon, and this is not acceptable to the villagers. There are aspects of modernity in the text as well. As if you have seen the film, you will understand that the film narration is interspersed with elements of modernity. There is the level crossing, there is the train itself, there is the advent of the daroga or the police and you can understand in 1930s society, and so there are at different levels of this story we see interactions between the village and modernity, and it's a constant affair. Now you might well argue that modernity wins at last, the daroga comes and does his job, yet at the same time the social ramifications, the social sanction against this sort of affair still continues, and how it affects the life of these two families. Now Mohanlal, for example, was attacked by the other upper caste members of the society because he had a friendship, and not just because he had a friendship, his son was in love with Kasturi, and thus they are attacked. Mohanlal is attacked, his shop is ransacked, his house is burnt down. At this very moment, Dukhya runs and tries to get help for his friend. Now so what does he do is he goes to the railway track and he tries to stop a train, because then he might get a doctor for his friend, because the doctor would be there in the next town where the next station is there. So where once because he is the linesman, he is able to stop the train. Still he doesn't succeed, because the guard of the train rebukes him for stopping a train. A train is a very important means of transporting. So, but what does the train do is, although Dukhya then is unsuccessful and he falls on the track and he is crying for help, and he thinks in his heart he could not help his friend Mohanlal at this very critical juncture of the movie. The guard goes on to the next station and sends the daroga back to the village, sensing something might be wrong. Now this level crossing in this film, which appears throughout this story, is almost a reference not only to like railway as a mode of transportation, but also as an between social forms as a democratizing agent. Okay, the railway is a democratizing agent. It's the modernity project that the film puts up unto itself. If you remember, the beginning of the film also starts with the level crossing, where the story is told. So the modernity keeps coming into this story time and again. So the attack on Mohanlal and the consequential coming of the daroga to the village to investigate into this incident gives us a few important signals of what is about to come. If you look at the grief-stricken friend called Dukhya, who wants to help his friend Mohanlal, and his daughter Kasturi, who is in love with the Mohanlal's son. This the social premise becomes more important than the love story itself. If you realize a modern day narrative, you will realize that the love interest becomes the main narrative, while in Achyut Kanya it's the premise of the caste that becomes the important part of the narrative. It's not so much in the love affair between the two. In fact, so much so that Mohanlal's son and Dukhiya's daughter Kasturi are not even married to each other. They don't get married to each other. They are married off to two different persons. Mohanlal's son is forced to marry another Brahmin girl from his own community, while Kasturi marries the railway linesman who comes to take the place of his father. So there is this important point that the caste ramifications remain, the caste peripheries remain intact in the narrative. The caste narratives are not breached for a moment, although we see the modernity interspersing and coming and trying to solve the issue. So the movement between spaces at the level of filmic narration runs parallel to the social problem, which inaugurates the riot that happened where Mohanlal's home was burnt and he was injured in that attack. And what does it do is it disturbs the imperatives of spatial and bodily separation which underline the caste system. Clearly then the train that we are talking about represents the possibilities of a further extension of this disturbance of traditional norms and spatial organization, and therefore becomes a metaphor for modernity when it brings the police to the village. The police daroga, Thanedar, is like the ideal representative of modernity. For he completely, if you notice the film, he completely disregards all these caste hierarchies in the village. Probably because it's British India, and caste hierarchies are important to a certain extent, but the hierarchy of the British supersedes all other hierarchies, and so the village, the daroga who comes to the village disregards all of these hierarchies within the village and proceeds to arrest the Brahmins who are part of the riot. Babulal Vaid, the village what you call village healer or the practitioner of medicine in the village, the traditional practitioner. Here I would also like to understate the point that Mohanlal was, if you notice throughout the film, was a practitioner of modern medicine. He was distributing, or rather selling, modern medicine tablets for malaria and so on from his shop, whereas Babulal Vaid represents the other spectrum of modernity. So we are Babulal Vaid is a traditional healer, is a traditional practitioner. So these are two contradictions that appear from the descriptions of these forces in the village. Okay, the Brahmins are also pitted against each other in this scale of modernity. And thus we see a very interesting narrative that is being built around the question of caste and hierarchy. So modernity plays a very, so the daroga, the railway and the medicine all play a very important hierarchies of modernity in the film. So Mohanlal is a practitioner, is represents modernity within the village. He goes against caste norms because he does not bother about Dukhiya being a lower caste. He goes against caste norms. He advocates new forms of medicine. He also refuses to press charges against the villagers or the attackers who attacked his home, he is not interested in going after them. Dukhya runs to the train for help. Although he wants to get the doctor, it's actually the police who come into the village. Justice is not the main purpose of this social setup that we have here. It's not about justice, it's not about realigning the caste hierarchies. So what I mean is, the film does not question caste hierarchies. They, both of them, Dukhya and Mohanlal being in a highly superior position, they are not bothered about justice. They don't want to take a revenge. They are not about revenge. So caste hierarchies are left untouched in the film. The film rather is a narration of status quoism. Okay, then it's just an extension. The narrative is an extension of the boundaries within which the actions take place, and it is affected through the narrative code, communication icon, and the induction of an overarching authority, the British. So what we are talking about is a status quo. So the narrative, the extension of the boundaries, the peripheries of the story, is within the hierarchical boundaries of caste, class, and of course under the overarching authority of the British in this case. Of course, we don't have any reference to British India apart from the guard or the train. If you might have a look, so please have a look at the movie very carefully, because when you are looking at the film, you see, I am talking about the issue of caste and the issue of hierarchies, while I am not at all, if you notice what I am talking, I am not at all talking about Kasturi and Ashok Kumar's character in the film, because I am not much bothered about the love affair between the two. Coming back to modernity then, in the form of the state, okay, in the form of the British state, in the form of the modern state, in the form of this super hierarchical state, modernity in the form of the state then remains outside the framework of the main action of this narrative. Modernity stays just out on the periphery. It does not affect the narrative at all. In the narrative, you might also argue that the train is there, sir. Indeed, the narrative's use of the train as a vehicle, it relays knowledge, it relays information, it relays authority also, the guard and the police. It all information goes through the train. Of course, all of that are there, but it also echoes like the authoritarian mastery over time and space. So there is this the control over time and space by an authoritarian power, if you understand. So this sort of a authoritarian resolution of time and space is there. Yet, and because this is a revolution in communication, let's say a transportation communication, this is there, but it does not necessarily touch upon caste hierarchies. It does not necessarily go into the framework of the main action. It does not cause a difference in the lives of our protagonists in the film. Okay, if you understand, I'll give you an example. See, a boy comes one day to take. Dukhya has fallen sick. Dukhya is very old now. He is sick, and there is another boy who has come to take his place. His job is gone for failing to do his duty. So the representative of the railway comes to sack Dukhya of his job. So there is this peripheral nature of the state. So there is authority. So Dukhya is removed. So you see, there is you see what we call is the law of contract comes into play. It's very oppressive, it's inhuman. If we know the story of Dukhya, but You see, for the state, Dukhya is only probably a number or a file or just a piece of information, and the oppressive nature of the law of contract, of the give and take, the monetary numeric value of Dukhya. So as long as he serves the state, he is good enough. The moment he is not able to perform his function, there is another young boy who comes to take his place. And now it's very interesting to know that this process of and Dukhya also very knowing fully well gives up his job within a moment and hands it over to the. But if you look at this issue, you will realize Dukhya also, Kasturi, the daughter of Dukhya, also is then given over to this boy. They get married because all is not well within the caste hierarchies of the village. Kasturi won't be able to marry Mohanlal's son, and we know this. The intrusion of the outer world is an alien idea, is unacceptable, and is inhuman, and from the town and from the perception of the villagers, it comes only in the aspect of the right and the wrong. The intrusion of the modernity is just to tell you whether you are right or wrong, or you should do it in this manner or that manner. And it's to some extent, although it brings justice along with it. For example, the coming of the Daroga, the coming of justice, there is also the coming of injustice along with the coming of the outer world, like in the case of Dukhya. And we see it's a very unjust world that we live in, inhuman world that we live in. So there is this signs of ambivalence of modernity that is shown, that is depicted on screen. Modernity is not always just. Modernity is not always welcome. Modernity is not always part of the lives of people. Modernity might also be alien. Modernity might also be inhuman, unjust, because it comes and ruins the whole structure of this village life. It not only ruins, it also tries to realign hierarchies, which it is not able to do, but it tries to in a certain manner. The coming of the train, if I might call it in a metaphoric manner, the coming of the train, the arrival of the train which passes through, is a trope, is a classical trope of arrival of modernity. And if you remember, I just talked to you about Lumiere Brothers. One of the earliest reels was the arrival of a train at a station. Please go and watch that. It's available. I might also give you the link. It's available on YouTube. The arrival of a train at a station, you will notice that the arrival of the train is almost metaphoric for the arrival of modernity. It symbolizes the arrival of a lot more meaning than it just a mechanical train. It's a narrational strategy in many films that the arrival of the train symbolizes. The oncoming movement of the train in Achyut Kanya is a classical then trope which underlines if only it would have been able to change. But the train modernity with train lines have telegraph. Those days telegraph lines would run parallel to train lines which would relay messages. The modernity is hurtling towards, is running towards the spectator, but it fails. In Achyut Kanya it fails. Achyut Kanya thus is a story of pathos. Achyut Kanya turns into, please watch the movie, turns into a story of a Greek tragedy almost. It's almost, as I say, it's almost a Greek tragic, because it's not about the love affair only, it's about social pathos. And this is something new in Indian cinema. if you understand the concept of the Indian cinemascape, this is the arrival of a new theatre form. It's almost like the Greek tragic drama. The Greek tragic drama trope is new to the Indian theatre did not have tragedy, okay, apart from a few Shakuntalas here and there, which was also so. Indian drama theatre historically did not have tragedy, so it with the western with the homecoming of the western stars of Himanshu Rai and Devika Rani, we also import some of the Greek tragic pathos into Indian cinema. Now there is another film that I would recommend for all of you to watch. It's again from Bombay Talkies. It's called Kismat. So please watch Kismat so that you understand the role of Kismat was released around in 1943. So please watch Kismat to understand how when we touched upon caste in Achyut Kanya, it touches upon the idea of the nation in, and remember it was before partition, before the independence of the country, so it touches upon the idea of nation. It talks about ultimate enemies in Germans and Japanese. So I would suggest that your understanding of this era of filmmaking, understanding of this era of society will be not over unless you have watched Kismat and Achyut Kanya together, one after the other, because this is very important to understanding the contribution of Bombay Talkies, Himanshu Rai and Devika Rani to the one, the rise of the popular Bollywood film that we understand, and number two, to the rise of these Western sensibilities in Indian cinema. So I would suggest you watch Achyut Kanya and then Kismat, and then of course I will give you few links to the oncoming modernity idea that I was talking about, and then we will take it forward in the other classes. Thank you. I think I'll stop it here today, and please if you have any doubts you can get back to me on WhatsApp. Thank you.